go back there and like give myself advice, I would say, you got to quit. You're terrible at this.
Oh my God.
Don't do this.
What are you doing,
Yeah,
man?
don't do
You
this.
sound atrocious.
You're not going to make it.
But I fucking thought I was fucking phenomenal. But I would look out at the crowd not laughing, going, these guys fucking nuts. They don't see how great this shit is. But it's almost like I was with my fucking giant afro, and my father would be at the table and he'd be like, you need a haircut. I'd be like, what are you talking about, man? He'd be like, you think you look good? I'd be like, I look great. He'd be like, you don't, just so you know, you don't look great. I'd be like, you are so off on that day.
It's funny, delusional thinking can sometimes carry you to the, like once you develop some skill, that delusional is like a little guardian that like keeps you protected while you actually develop talent.
The power of being a little crazy. Adam Sandler is now worth over $440 million and Joe Rogan over $200 million. Have you ever stopped to think about what your life would look like if you were just a little more delusional about what you're capable of? It doesn't matter if you think you can or you can't. You're right. I'm not talking about living in La La Land, thinking you're Michael Jordan when you can barely dribble. I'm talking about believing in yourself so deeply that you start seeing opportunities where everyone else only sees obstacles. I'm talking about developing the capacity to be crazy enough to believe that the impossible can become a reality. I know so-and-so has more money, or they got luckier, or someone else is smarter or more talented than me. While there might be truth to all that, ruminating on those facts won't change your life, but being crazy enough to believe you can achieve a huge dream, that just might. Part 1. The Bannister Effect Myth, the 4-minute mile. Gunther Hig had just set a world record, running the mile in 4 minutes and 1.4 seconds. Seems like a random time, right? But this number became a global obsession. The consensus among experts at the time was clear. 4 minutes was an insurmountable barrier. Many said it was impossible for athletes to keep getting faster. Some scientists even went as far as to say the human body couldn't withstand running that fast. And if someone broke the 4-minute barrier, their heart would probably explode.
Swedes during the war had got to 4 minutes 1.2 seconds, and people said, well, there may be a barrier. You can't keep on running faster. It didn't make sense to me that there was a barrier, and that if someone could run 4 minutes 1.2 seconds, it was possible to run it in under 4 minutes.
And on May 6, 1954, Roger Bannister ran a mile in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. He did it. He turned the impossible into just another broken record. The result? Countless other runners started breaking the 4-minute barrier simply because they now knew it was possible. This is known globally as the Bannister Effect. Wow, what an inspiring story. Sounds like a Disney script. Everyone said it was impossible, but the hero believed in himself and made the impossible happen. Except, real life is rarely that fairy tale. The true story has some nuances everyone prefers to ignore. Some sites claim over 20 runners broke the mark in less than a year. The truth is, it was only John Land in 1954 and 3 others the following year. More importantly, all world records for running 800 meters, 1,600 meters, 5,000 meters had a similar stagnation during that period. And you know why? World War II, few elite athletes were competing, and training facilities were destroyed. It's far more likely the stagnation was caused by the war, and the progress came with the return of athletes to the sport and the modernization of training that happened in the 50s and 60s. That just isn't as pretty as the Bannister Effect, is it? The necessary ingredient. Crazy belief. But hold on. Before you think that believing in yourself is just motivational fluff, it's not. Self-belief is fundamental to achieving anything in life. I started with that story to show you that success isn't a Netflix movie where you just need faith and everything works out in the end. Success is an extremely complex thing. Being an outlier, being exceptional, involves many factors. However, there is a pattern among everyone who achieves success. They are crazy enough to believe they will succeed, even when everyone else is saying it's impossible, that it's insane, that they've completely lost touch with reality. And they don't stop at just belief. They transform this craziness into fuel for a dedication that borders on obsession. And it's about those crazies we're going to talk about now. This man needs no introduction, right? Everyone knows the greatest basketball player of all time. But how can a guy who's 6'6" inches and wasn't the best in history at practically any specific basketball skill be considered the GOAT? Michael Jordan wasn't the tallest, fastest, or strongest. He's also not considered the best shooter, defender, or passer to ever step on a court. But the answer to our question started being written in 1986.
The fact that he's the most fundamentally sound basketball player that ever lived. If you look at all the highlights, you see the dunks. But when he's on defense, the correct hand in the passing lane. When he's boxing out, he turns the correct way. Most guys who are super athletic don't do that. To me, that's the one thing he does not get credit for.
He reached this status for 2 reasons: obsession with winning and being a complete maniac. All great athletes want to win, But Michael Jordan, even among the most competitive in the NBA, was always a level above. He trained at an intensity few could keep up with because he knew that was the price of being the best. And to top it off, he was a completely competitive madman. The guy would invent imaginary rivalries just to have fuel to train and play. If someone didn't greet him properly, it became a reason to destroy that person in the next game. It is exactly this level of madness and obsession that made him the greatest of all time.
Never like to lose. Mike always got that look. When you see that look, then you know just get in the damn ball and get out the way.
What I wanted to do working at a video store, this isn't my dream. I wanted to actually make movies.
Quentin Tarantino, the visionary dropout. 15. Quentin Tarantino dropped out of school and started working at a video rental store. No film school, no industry connections, no money. Imagine telling your parents that, look, I dropped out of school. I'm going to work at a video store because I'm going to revolutionize Hollywood. Did this kid smoke something? No way, but he had something most people don't, an unwavering belief in his artistic vision. He didn't just love movies. He knew he had something unique to tell. For years, nobody cared about his scripts. Any normal person would have given up, gotten upset, found a serious job. But seriously, Tarantino persisted, and in 1992, he managed to make Reservoir Dogs 2 years later. Pulp Fiction won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. The rest is history. Do you see the pattern? A Brazilian wanting to be the world's basketball scoring legend. A young black man from North Carolina wanting to be the greatest athlete in history. A guy who dropped out of school at 15 wanting to revolutionize Hollywood. The chances of this working out are minimal, if not impossible. It would make perfect logical sense to give up after years of no results. But these people are different. They are crazy enough to believe it will work out. And it is precisely because of this, because they persevere, because they don't give up, because they keep trying for years without any result, that they eventually achieve success, of course. All these guys are talented, geniuses in their fields, but it was the years of dedication, sweat, blood, and tears that made them so damn good that the world could no longer ignore them. They turned a crazy belief into fuel for their obsession. But there's a fine line between being productively crazy and being a complete idiot with delusions of grandeur. To understand this difference, we need to dive into the cogs of our minds, the engine of the mind. Self-efficacy. I know you might be thinking, that's great, but is this just motivational talk, or is there science behind it? This unwavering belief functions as a temporary psychological shield. It's like putting on armor that protects you from skepticism and external pressure until the results start showing up. But most importantly, this self-confidence only works when it's accompanied by real action. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about having a growth mindset that makes you believe your skills can be developed. It's the difference between, I am a genius, you were born that way, you're done, and I can become very good at this, you can improve with practice. The first is delusion. The second is self-efficacy. This is a very important term for this video. Self-efficacy is the specific belief that you can execute the actions necessary to achieve a specific goal. Michael Jordan didn't think he was good at everything, but he knew he could become the greatest basketball player if he trained obsessively. Tarantino didn't imagine himself as a superhero, but he believed he could become a great director if he dedicated his entire life to it. How to develop self-efficacy, but how do you develop this in practice? Focus on small wins. Every small success builds confidence for bigger challenges. See examples as inspiration. If they did it, I can too. Focus on positive feedback from people you respect. Control your reactions. Transform nervousness into energy, not paralyzing panic. With this you accept bigger challenges, persist longer, and learn to better handle the inevitable failures that will happen on your journey. The biological change, but now comes the most interesting part. When you develop self-efficacy, your brain literally the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, becomes more active and efficient, meaning you plan better, have greater self-control, and improve your decision-making. Plus, there is a greater release of dopamine, which boosts motivation, focus, and learning, as well as serotonin and endorphins. Furthermore, people with high self-efficacy see challenges as opportunities, not threats. This leads to a lower release of cortisol, resulting in less stress, better memory, and cognition. Neuroplasticity also happens. Your brain physically reorganizes itself to get better at the skill you're developing. Basically, your specific belief literally changes your biology to make you more efficient. Productively crazy versus delusional idiot. So here's the big question. How do you know if you're being productively crazy or just delusional? The main difference is action. The productively crazy people don't just dream, they transform belief into obsessive work. They see failure as feedback, not a verdict. Jordan and Oscar lost countless important games. Tarantino had his scripts and projects rejected for years, but they adjusted their strategies, learned from their mistakes, and kept moving. They know exactly where they are good and where they need to improve. The craziness is in the ambition of the goal, not in thinking they are already perfect. And on top of all this, their belief is so solid that it makes others believe in it. They inspire, they transform that individual thought into a collective effort. The delusional person, however, stays in fantasy, ignores feedback, isolates when criticized, and in the end, nobody buys their idea. The necessary combination, so, having an unwavering belief in yourself is not just motivational talk, it's a real psychological mechanism. People with high self-efficacy have greater resilience, better emotional regulation, and more persistence. But this only works when you combine that belief with hard work, constant learning, and the humility to adjust course when necessary. Now, the big question is, even with all this, is it enough? Or is there something more to this story? Something that might determine if all this dedication will lead you to success or not? To answer that, there is only one way. You need to understand the rules of the game. The rules of the game: luck and timing. Bill Gates, perfect timing. This is William Henry Gates 3. Bill Jr. That 1% he's talking about is worth more than what 500 people earn combined in their entire lives. The official story is the child prodigy who dropped out of Harvard to start Microsoft in his garage, but the truth is a little more complex. At 12 years old, Gates was sent to the Lakeside School, an elite institution. The following year, the school acquired something almost impossible for 1969, one of the only computers in the world. While kids his age barely knew what a computer was, Bill Jr. spent 12 hours a day programming. He was a little strange, but in January 1975, reading a magazine, something amazing happened. He had an idea so fascinating that it made him crazy enough to believe he could change the world. 8 months later, he dropped out of his law degree at Harvard and joined Paul Allen, a former Lakeside friend, to create Microsoft. Today, Bill Jr. is worth $117 billion. Now, what truly led to this success? Of course, our dear Bill worked like a maniac, but let's be honest about the factors that made it possible. He was from an upper middle class family. He studied at Lakeside, which had one of the world's only computers. 99% of kids his age didn't have access to this. Plus, he was born between 1950 and 1960, the perfect timing for the PC revolution. And he liked to program, right? That's like having an interest in the right field. All of this culminated in the fact that when IBM needed an operating system in 1980, Bill Jr. bought a ready-made system, modified it, and created MS-DOS. That contract with IBM turned Microsoft into the giant we know today. Steve Jobs, geography and access. Literally at the time, there was only one other computer company that wasn't using MS-DOS, another startup, also created by two young entrepreneurs. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, and was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs. Paul was a mechanic and taught Steve about electronics and, most importantly, the importance of detail. This completely shaped Steve Jobs' obsession with design. Furthermore, he grew up in Los Altos, in the heart of Silicon Valley. At 13, he simply called Bill Hewlett, co-founder of HP, asking for parts for a project, and thus simply got a summer job at HP. And in college, well, let him tell you himself. The Outliers thesis. 10,000 hours in luck. Do you see the pattern? The two largest operating systems companies were born at the exact same time. It's not a coincidence. It's an absurd combination of favorable circumstances. There's a guy who studied this in depth, Malcolm Gladwell, and in his book Outliers, he presents a very simple thesis. Extraordinary success is a combination of talent, hard work, and lucky or hidden advantages. These are the family you were born into, the era, geography, culture, and the unique opportunities that happen in your life, factors completely beyond your control. But all success begins with one thing, the 10,000-hour rule. Gladwell popularized the idea that mastery in any complex field requires approximately 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. That means over 3 hours of practice every day for 10 years. One piece of research that proves this is the study of the Berlin Academy of Music. Researchers divided violinists into 3 groups: the star's potential for international careers, the good's potential for orchestra careers, and the last's future music teachers. Analyzing the practice history of each group since childhood, they found a clear pattern. By age 20, the star violinists had a minimum of 10,000 hours of practice. The goods had 8,000 hours and the future teachers around 4,000 hours. The crucial point is that the difference wasn't natural talent, it was the opportunity to practice enough. Those who reached the top had the conditions, time, resources, and access to dedicate 10,000 hours of exhaustive practice. Luck is a prerequisite, but simply having that practice isn't enough. You need things that are beyond your control. Michael Jordan had a competitive family environment, a basketball court in the backyard, an older brother who always played with him, and was in North Carolina, which has an absurd basketball tradition, infrastructure, culture, and opportunities. Plus, his college coach was Dean Smith, one of the greatest in world basketball history. Oscar Schmidt is even more interesting. In '84, FIBA prevented NBA professionals from playing in the Olympics. Our dear Oscar was drafted by the New Jersey Nets but said he didn't want to go. He wanted to continue representing Brazil. a crazy decision that not only made him a legend of European basketball but also allowed him to win the Pan American Games in the United States and made him the all-time scoring leader. Tarantino grew up in Los Angeles, the center of the world film industry, worked at a video store for years, and had perfect timing. The 90s saw a resurgence of independent cinema. The public was hungry for original, unconventional voices, exactly when he managed to release Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. But not everyone is born in the right place or discovers what they love to do early on. Sometimes the thing is knowing how to recognize when life shows you an opportunity. That's the case of Jeff Bezos, who had a consolidated career on Wall Street, but in 1994 he discovered that the internet was growing 2,300% per year. And what did he do? He left everything to sell books online. Unlike Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Tarantino, who loved technology and cinema, Bezos left everything to sell books. He wasn't an avid reader. He simply identified a stroke of luck that life showed him and risked everything on it. This is the big point. Extraordinary success is never just individual merit. You need both luck and dedication, like few are willing to do. Maximizing your luck now. How do you identify your lucky breaks? How do you maximize opportunities? There is only one way: dedicating yourself to the maximum, because one thing is certain: without the madness and the hard work, the lucky breaks will go unnoticed. If you pursue a dream for a decade, it's almost impossible not to have luck at least once. The thing is to be prepared when it appears. However, life isn't always a bed of roses. The unsung crazies when it doesn't work out, the unrecognized greats. Even if you dedicate your entire life, nothing is guaranteed. It might not work out. The harsh reality is that many famous people had that unwavering belief, worked harder than most, and died without the recognition they deserved. Van Gogh sold only one work in his lifetime, 1 month before he died, despite having made over 900 paintings. Kafka was so discouraged with his work that he asked a friend to destroy all his manuscripts when he died. The friend disobeyed, published his works, and Kafka became one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. Edgar Allan Poe, the father of modern horror, died poor and an alcoholic, without recognition. These guys had the same madness as Jordan, Jobs, and Gates. The difference was timing, luck, and context. They were right. The world just wasn't ready to recognize their greatness, but even so, they continued, even without recognition, without money, without encouragement. Why did they do that? Because their belief wasn't about fame or money. It was about the intrinsic value of the work. They knew they were creating something important, even if nobody agreed with it. The legacy of the unsung. And why should you continue on this journey, even knowing it might not work out? This is Donana, my grandmother. Like many Brazilians, she grew up in conditions so poor that she couldn't afford to dream. She could only think about survival. But even so, she dedicated herself to the maximum throughout her life to give the best possible to my mother and my uncles. In the 70s, in rural Brazil, my grandfather wanted the children to stop studying to dedicate themselves to work and help at home. This was the norm at the time. Donana, a housewife supported by her husband, who barely learned to write her own name in a time when a woman couldn't contradict a man's word, said no. She knew what it was like to feel small in front of those who were educated. She saw how they were respected, how the world opened up with infinite possibilities for those who could read and write things she never had. With all the strength she had, she said, no matter the cost, her children would have what she always wanted and didn't have: the dignity of knowing how to read, to understand the world, to be independent. Her children were going to study to become someone in life. This single decision changed your life. Yes, yours, the one watching this video now. Because of her, my mother and uncles were able to study. My mother got a better job, met my father. Because of all this, I was able to grow up in a better financial condition and had the possibility to dream about the future I wanted for myself and chase after it. Because of Donana's crazy decision. You are watching this video now, all because a woman in a small town in São Paulo, extremely poor, without running water or electricity, dared to believe that it was worth sacrificing, arguing with her husband, and going hungry so her children would have the minimal chance for a better future. This is the great lesson I take from my grandmother's story. Even if you can't change your own life, you can change the lives of the people you love. Hard work and sacrifice are never in vain. Sometimes the result doesn't come for you. Sometimes it comes for those you love. Sometimes it comes for future generations you don't even know. The final chance, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. Nobody can guarantee your dreams will come true. I can't promise you'll get rich, get everything you want, or even that your hard work will be rewarded in your lifetime. But I can guarantee you one thing. By dedicating yourself to the maximum, you have the most important thing in life, a chance. Because if you dedicate yourself for 10, 15, 20 years to something, it's almost impossible for nothing to happen. You don't control when you were born, what family you had, or the lucky breaks that will cross your path, but you control two things: how much you dedicate yourself and how vigilant you are for opportunities. Most people give up halfway, change direction when things get tough, when there are no results. But your lucky break could come next week or 30 years from now. You don't know when, but when it appears, you need to be ready to grab it. And that's exactly why you need a little bit of craziness to keep going, even when you're getting absolutely no results. Remember Donana, my grandmother, she never knew if her gamble would pay off. She just knew it was worth trying, that it was the only way for her children to have a chance. And with that, she changed the lives of entire generations of her family. The truth is, Brazil and the world are full of Donanas who have silently changed human history. Because in the end, it is the people crazy enough to believe they can change the world and history who actually do it. And who knows, maybe you are one of those people. Closing quote. I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. If this video resonated with you, show your support. Like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little dose of productive madness.